it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. I feel so good. I feel so good.
Just make sure to talk to him. He disconnected it while I was in the meeting. All of a sudden, an email popped up. It took 2 days, and then I went in my laptop, and he was able to get that.
There we go.
He disconnected it. That's something to do with Microsoft 365. Good. You have Microsoft 365? That's all. 365 is Word and
Good morning. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the HOA2 Board. If you will stand, please, for our Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Just a little reminder, if you would mind, maybe put your cell phones on airplane mode or something like that. That'd probably be helpful here. Before I introduce the board, my name is Dan Leniger. I'm president of the HOA2 board. We're missing one person. Mark Eckert is not here today. He's on vacation, or he's flying out for a vacation as we speak, so he's not with us. Hopefully we don't have any 3-3s or anything we have to deal with like that. But anyway, we wish him the best and safe travels. As I mentioned, I'm Dan Lindiger. I'll let us go down and introduce ourselves.
Chuck Hill, Secretary.
Sean Kreiderman, Director.
Campbell Cheney, Treasurer.
Matt Cambick, Assistant Treasurer.
Denise Lixell, Director.
Walter Yazzie, General Manager.
Diane Flores, Recording Secretary.
All right, thank you very much. I did want to say something before we get started. Diane has given us her notice that she plans to retire and be just like us, which is a wonderful thing. Diane has been with HOA2 for 25 years. It's an incredible time that she's spent. She's trained a lot of board members, just like me, and others along the way. But I just wanted to say thank you, Diane, for all that you do. She has given us 2 months of notice, which is really outstanding, and I want to thank you for that as well. But anyway, thanks for what you do, and congratulations and good luck.
Thank you.
Cool.
Okay, the first order of business on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the February 22nd, 2023 board meeting. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes from the February meeting.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion from the homeowners on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to the general manager's update, so I'll call on Walter.
Thank you, Dan. First, let me start off by saying you can see behind me from me and all of the staff at HOA2. We'd just like to say that we appreciate you residents, and we thank you for your support as we try to provide the facilities that you expect here at Saddlebrook. I'm going to run down quickly some of the things the staff is doing, and then once I'm through with my section, I'll turn it over to Ray, who will come up and also finish out all the things that staff is doing. Okay, so two big things the staff is dealing with right now, and the first thing you're probably aware of, it's been for a while, we're still dealing with the new software package that we've brought on. We have ways ahead. It's not going to be right away. It's not going to be tomorrow. We have some plans for moving forward, but we do appreciate you being patient with us, being patient with the staff, whether it's at the admin office, at the restaurants, the golf courses, as we work our way through this. I know financially we're still trying to get these items sorted out. Getting pretty close to getting December's done. You know, the audit is here, and Terry is currently working as hard as he can to get things straight so that the auditors can do their job. And at the same time, he's also trying to make some headway on January's numbers. So definitely a big hurdle that we're dealing with. The other hurdle that we're dealing with is just hiring staff, and it's not just here at HOA. Two, I think you see all these now hiring signs when you go out to the community, but we definitely here in the food and beverage area are short people, common areas is short people, and Diane, I'm going to be short here pretty soon. But so we're dealing with that. Those are the two big hurdles that we're dealing with. Our day-to-day operations are going on. Again, if you have visitors coming, guests coming, the admin desk asks that you make appointments so that you can come and take care of business quickly. You won't have to wait in line if you make an appointment. Just since January, we've had 380 guests come up, and that takes time for the staff to process the paperwork and the ID card. So again, if you can plan ahead and have that taken care of ahead of time, that would help out the admin staff. Some things on food and beverage. Food and beverage has been really busy since November, and again, it's been quite stressful for them as they're short-staffed, but yet they are pulling off these events as you probably don't really notice too much how short-staffed they are because they're pulling these events off. For example, we have over 200 expected for the Easter Sunday brunch at the Mountain View Bar and Grill. There are still a few more slots at the Preserve for Easter, so if you're looking for somewhere to go for Easter, check at the Preserve. In Lifestyles, again, we've got the Community Circle Dinner Theater going on right now. They've had 3 nights. All 6 nights are sold out. So that's something, again, the staff has been working hard to support there. Senior Village Beach Bash is on this Saturday, on April 1st. Approximately 250 people have signed up for that event. So thank you for all of you for participating in these events that the Lifestyle folks put together. Now, again, talking about being short-staffed, we're going to have to close the Mountain View Bar and Grill so that we have enough staff to support that event. So that's going to be Saturday. Mountain View Bar and Grill will be closed. Here at the theater, we've been having some great shows, and the seats have been filling up. The next show is, again, this Saturday. Uptown will be here, and tickets are still available for that show. Another thing that has been brought to my attention, and I've seen a couple emails from Lifestyle, is, again, we've had this room policy we changed quite a while ago where you no longer can reserve your room for a whole year. It's I think they cap it at 3 months. So just make sure you plan, as far you can only reserve your room for 3 months, and make sure you make plans to renew that and work with the Lifestyle folks to coordinate that. It's just more fair for everyone. So if you do that, we'd appreciate that. Over to golf maintenance. Again, we know that May 1 is the big project down here at Mountain View Golf Course. So there's a lot of planning and going into that, we've had meetings with the golf committee, with myself, with board members, with marketing. So there's a lot of plans going on for that. So keep your eye open for some of those, like a groundbreaking event will be planned for that also. Golf courses, again, we're right on the horizon of transitioning from the Wintergrass to the Bermuda. So I'm sure Paul will put out notice for all of you golfers on when that's happening. He too is working with trying to find staff and keep enough staff for his operations. Golf operations, again, the collegiate tournament was a couple weeks ago, and it was a great success. The Iowa State team won the tournament, and they had they came in with 60 under par, which again, I believe that's quite great. I'm not a golfer, but I understand that's quite amazing. So awesome there. Now, revenue-wise, it was a great thing for us also. We brought in $16,000 on the green fees for that, plus whatever food and beverage and some of the other supporting departments brought in also some revenue there, so that was great. Now, for the flip side, there's been a lot of weather, and we've had a lot cooler weather this year. Frost delays, so at the Mountain View, we are down 1,909 rounds as of this week compared to last year. And at the Preserve, we're down 2,187. So, Mother Nature has a vote in what we do, and we've just got to deal with what we're dealt.
60,
so,
actually 66.
And again, May 1, Mountain View Golf Course will shut down to start the big project. Again, in human resources, you just heard that Diane is retiring. Luckily, it's not until May 31st, so we can try to get as much knowledge as we can out of her, all 25 years worth. The other person that has turned in their resignation is our HR manager. She's going to, her last day will be the 7th of April, and so we'll be filling that position here soon also. We talked about TEI. And finally, before I bring Ray up here, just hitting on marketing. Marketing is quite busy. They support all of our different departments. They also look at outside and bringing business in from the outside. And one of the big efforts they're doing right now is they are coordinating with the Invited marketing team. And Invited are the folks that manage the golf courses. So our marketing team and their marketing team are coordinating for the shutdown and all of the different events that go along with the shutdown of the Mountain View Golf Course and keeping you up to date on that project. Other things marketing has, if you've gone on to our website lately, you might have noticed there is a community event calendar, and it's a calendar you can see in different views, but it's a calendar that kind of lays out what's going on for the month, and it just puts it day by day, and it makes it easy for you to pull that up and get a quick view of everything that's going on. So look for that on the home page. And there's also the bulletin board is up and running now, where you can go and put items that you want to sell or trade or whatever you want to do there on the website. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ray to focus a little bit more on facilities and some of that other fun stuff.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate you. As Walter said, I'm going to touch on some of the activities that are going on in some of my departments. Common area first. As you may know, our common area director resigned a few months back, and so we have promoted from within. Elias Hernandez is going to be the common area supervisor, effective immediately. And I don't know if Elias is here. Elias, stand up and say hello to everybody. Thank you. Most of our level 5 common area landscape equipment has been ordered. Much of it has been received. Our Caterpillar skid steer is coming In fact, tomorrow, going to be delivered. 3 of our staff are going to be trained in that piece of equipment for level 5 landscaping. Level 4 landscape maintenance is proceeding as scheduled. We will be moving into Unit 45 and Unit 50 next week. Also, we're keeping pace with many special landscape requests recently. I guess it's that time of year as things begin to grow. Facilities. Want to point out that you'll see some activity over the Mountain View golf cart parking area. We are putting canopies over the Mountain View storage area, golf cart storage area, and the Preserve golf cart storage area. So that is being erected starting early this week. Should take about 2 weeks to erect the one at Mountain View, and then Preserve will follow. We have refreshed our golf course and common area maintenance facilities. I use that refreshed term because, we're not renovating them. We're making them as presentable as we can with the money that we have. Desert View Roofing Project is been approved by the Board of Directors. I'm going to be sharing a few slides after I'm finished talking about facilities maintenance highlights about that project, some of those details, so that you see where your money is being spent. It's all happening on the roof, so it's something that may or may not be noticed by the residents, but it's a very important activity. We are investigating the use of UVC lighting for use in our spa disinfecting. As you may know, we have UVC lighting in all of our facilities for disinfecting the air, and now we're going to carry that over and help us minimize the amount of chlorine that we use for disinfecting the spas. Maybe eventually the pools as well, but it's a known disinfectant and is very effective to minimize the amount of chlorine that we use in the spas. Also, an energy efficiency activity, we're planning to install LED lighting in all the parking lot lights. They're currently sodium, anyway. They're going to be LEDs, and they'll be much more efficient than they currently are. And with that, move to the Desert View Roofing Project. So, first thing to state is that this roof is now 18 years old. It's done its job. It is in the reserve in 2023 to be replaced. Specifically the TPO, which is basically a rubber material, and the underlayment that's under the tile. We know from experience at the Preserve that the materials that were used 20 years ago is basically felt paper, and it's pretty much denigrated at this point and not as effective as it needs to be. The point to make here is that what is not included in the reserve is the parapets. We know that that technology also uses felt paper as a vapor barrier, and from the Preserve we discovered that that felt paper is pretty much completely gone and not effective. So we also have leaking in the areas of the parapets. We did entertain just coating the rubber roof here at Desert View, but what we discovered is that there was already damage done to the substrate layer, so we really have to go and tear that TPO off and reskin it and take care of some of the damage that exists in the substrate. So we went out and got 3 quotes from local roofers, Elite Building Systems, Progressive Roofing, and Diversified. Progressive and Diversified only quoted the underlayment and the TPO, but as I said, we know that we have issues with the parapet, so Elite Building has provided a comprehensive bid to do all 3 of those things. It's important to note here that when they first bid, they were $70,000 higher than budget, So we challenged them. We've built a pretty loyal relationship with them. As I said, they worked on the Preserve roofing project for us and have done many other projects here in the last 2 years. So they came back, sharpened their pencil, and they were able to reduce $70,000 out of the total budget for this project. They were not the low bid. They were $10,000 higher than Diversified, but because of the loyalty that we have to them and they have to us, as I said, they sharpened the pencil, and the total project has come in at $394,000. I mentioned that the board has approved this, so there is no vote going to happen. I'm just basically informing you of that project and the cost associated with it. So finally, yeah, that'll be happening probably start in a month or so, and it'll be probably a 2 to 3 month project. So you may or may not see that activity. As I said, it's on the roof, but we do have 20 and 30-year warranties from the manufacturer on the rubber roof, and a 2-year warranty on the workmanship. And that's what I have for you today on
Ray?
Yes?
Can you kind of explain those pictures?
Oh,
Just let them know what a parapet is and TPO.
So we do have a tested product here. As I said, we did this at the Preserve. The picture on the left is basically waterproofing the parapets. And the picture on the right is where they have reskinned the TPO. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Ray. Just to give you a little background, the board sometimes finds decision requirements to be made between meetings. We can't really set every decision parameter to be set up for every meeting, and this requirement happened to come in really early in the month of March. And we did a UWC, unanimous written consent, agreement on this overage to budget that Ray has suggested in his presentation. And we wanted to do it because we wanted to make sure they had, staff had the ability to get this contract written and work performed before we see a lot of the rains in July and monsoon season. So they really wanted to get this going, and that 3-week period meant a lot to them in that regard. So that's the reason this has been voted on already, and I just wanted to make that comment for you to understand that process that we took. Okay, finance update, Campbell.
Thanks, Dan. Good morning, everyone. If you recall last month, I said a comment about the financials not being available for December because of our TEI issues and the problem between TEI and our accounting systems not communicating well. Not much has changed. It is a serious issue. We're working very aggressively to get those resolved. We have several angles we're working right now, but we do have some very preliminary December financials, which are now up on the board, which I kind of will talk about briefly because these numbers will likely change. So what we have so far is that our net income for the whole year of 2022 was about $96,000 positive. Now that's a cash generation number. We were budgeted for $518,000, so that's a $422,000 variance. So what happened? Basically, there were two issues that caused most of, if not all of this variance. One of which we were shortfall in our food and beverage revenue. We weren't bringing in enough customers, meaning residents. The way I look at it, residents not using our food and beverage. That shortfall was $317,000, or about 9% variance from budget. The other issue was, no surprise, inflation really impacted our golf course maintenance expenses. That was about $173,000 over budget. Combine those, you get about that $422,000 variance from what we have with the budget. And you can see from the boxes, I don't know if you can see that, but I put in the boxes kind of the important items that I want you to focus on. Down below the last kind of box you see our net income from restaurants were $483,000 loss. We're not using our restaurants, our food and beverage. You also have golf. We've had about $659,000 loss as well. Again, that's because of the expenses, seed, materials just went through the roof because of inflation. Kind of want to make a comment verbally about where we are right now, year to date, almost the second, third week of March. I went through our bank account, money in, money out, compared it to our budget, and we spend about $4 million budgeted for the first quarter. We spent about $4 million, so we're not over budget on our expenses, which I think is a very positive sign. Going forward, we'll see what happens, as the months go by. No promises on when we'll get January and February financials out. We're still trying very aggressively to get those out. But at least for our expenses for the first quarter, they are matching what our budget outlined in 2023. Finally, if you could, Joey, get to the next slide. This is our reserve issue expenditures for the first quarter, as well as our our capital expenditures for the capital improvement fund. I'm not going to go through the list, but we have probably ordered most of this equipment is starting to come in. As Ray said, our track slider is coming in tomorrow. So those things are starting to come in. But here's a list. You can look at it at your leisure of what we're spending on the reserve. Also in that, Ray talked about the tile replacement at Desert View. That's in there as well. And lastly, I want to make a comment. I've been getting questions about the banking crisis, what's going on, how does that relate to our HOA. When Silicon Valley Bank failed a couple weeks ago, I moved all of our cash. We had $4.5 million in our operating fund and about $4 million in our reserve fund. I pushed that into something called an insured cash sweep. I took all of our money and spread it out over various community banks around the country, keeping our deposits under $250,000. So we're pretty well protected if things continue to be somewhat volatile. And with that, Dan, I think that's my update.
Thanks, Campbell. I'm certainly not the smartest guy in the room about what he just said 2 minutes ago, but I will tell you, I feel a lot better about the banking issues that are going on and how our money is protected because of Campbell's efforts. So thank you very much, Campbell. You've done some great work in the last, obviously, a couple of weeks in that issue, and thanks for reviewing our finances. I will tell you, even looking at it here, I almost needed a pair of glasses to look at it, so I don't know how you guys are seeing anything from the audience. So go online. It's all online, and you can click on it and look at that kind of detail, certainly in a little better environment. So I apologize for the smallness of the print, but it's what's going on. So thank you, Campbell. Okay, I had review unanimous written consents. I just talked to you about that with regard to the Desert View roof, and that has already taken place. So Matt, I think you're up. Matt has a Rincon Room repurpose update, which, as all of you know, I'm sure you know, last month we talked about the board goals for 2023. We have some aggressive goals in 2023 as a board. One of those is this topic, so I'm going to let Matt give us his update on that.
Thanks, Dan. I am Matt Cambick, and I'm proud to tell you that I was given responsibility to tackle this board goal. And when we were discussing the goals, there was a lot of energy about tackling this particular problem. The problem statement that I produced for the team that I'm going to share with you in a second for our consideration and deliberation on how we were going to move forward. How do we create more space to support fitness, wellness, and recreation activity? And I'm going to tell you the history of the problem that we're dealing with, how we got to this place, how long we've been in this position, and then the work that we've done to come to some kind of a recommendation to provide to my fellow board members. Next slide, Joey. So I'm a team guy, and one of the things that I believe in is you could fill a thimble with what I know about running an HOA. I consider myself a subject matter expert in one area only in this HOA, and I worked hard to do that over years. And so I rely on a lot of other people to give me information, insights, and experience and advice when I try to tackle problems like this one. Our team consisted of myself and Denise. As you know, Denise Lexell is the newest member of our board, but as soon as she came on through the last special election, Dan called me up and said, "I think Denise would be a good asset for you." Well, she's certainly more than that, because she had 3 years of experience serving on our Fitness, Wellness, and Recreation Committee, and this project was smack dab into her area of expertise in serving in our community. I also wanted to collaborate with Walter and his staff. And so I went to Walter and shared my thoughts about, here's the task the board has, and here's my vision for going about analyzing the opportunities that are in front of us to prepare a recommendation. And Walter, I want to say thank you for supporting me. But he made everybody on his staff that was touched by a single course of action that you're going to see today was a part of the deliberations in creating the courses of action and then screening them for what would be the best recommendation we could provide to our board. So Ray Kuhn, the Assistant General Manager, was part of that team. Matt Hudson, the Director of Golf Operations. Alan Lambert, the Director of Food and Beverage. Liz Lawson from Lifestyle and Events Manager. I wish I could tell you in 30 seconds all of the services we're delivering to our residents that these people touch. I just don't have that time. Next slide. There were some additional voices, what I call expert voices, I wanted to touch. I sat down with Doug Springer, who's the chairman of the Fitness, Wellness, and Recreation Committee, and I took advantage of his insights and his knowledge about the various areas that I was engaged in here. Denise and I both sat with Jeanette Pyle, our Director of Fitness and Wellness. I learned more in an hour in sitting with these two ladies than I'd ever known about what we're doing, FWR, to support this community. Jeanette is truly an asset, and she's got great visions for how to help deliver even more service to the residents of our community. And I've got to mention Doug Sifford. He's a member of our former Strategic Planning Committee who spent an hour and a half with Denise and myself at my house to take us through the 2020 survey that was done. I call that the voice of the customer. That was your opportunity to tell the board what it is that we need to be doing in our community. And I wanted to hear from somebody that was deeply involved in that process to make sure the board had the benefit of that experience, and we brought that forward with you today. Next slide, Joey. So here's some background. So you understand the foundation of this problem set we're dealing with. In 2017, a series of decisions were made that relocated the ALC out of the Desert View and moved them into the Catalina room, which at that time was the home of the golf shop. To make room for the golf shop, Fitness and Wellness lost almost 2,000 square feet of space, and the golf shop was moved out of the Catalina room into the Rincon room. This was intended to be a temporary move. Ongoing at that time in 2017 was the architectural planning to build a 1,000 square foot golf shop outside of what we now know as the Mesquite Grill. Fast forward, so what happened was some space was created at Desert View by moving the ALC out. If you remember back in the golden days when I moved here, ALC had regular meetings where we all used to go sit around big tables and do all that stuff. And then COVID hit, and changed our operating processes. So ALC required a lot of space back in the day. They still require space because they got a lot of work that they do on our behalf. In 2018, the architectural drawing was completed, the analysis was provided to the board, and the price tag choked them, and they decided they were not going to build the new golf shop. So from 2018 till today, Fitness, Wellness, and Recreation has not had access to that nearly 2,000 square feet, as we know as the Rincon Room. In 2021 and 2022, my colleague, Sean Kreiderman, led our MAC task force, and I'm going to talk more about that in a second. What was important about that is an awful lot of the information that came out of the 2020 survey done by the community was embraced by that task force. And we made the conclusion that that work that that task force did would be a useful input into the work that we were doing. Moving forward, the board establishes the goal. We got to get the golf shop out of the Rincon Room so we can return it to Fitness, Wellness, and Recreation. The board goals were established at the January board meeting, and I immediately went to work. Brother Dan handed out assignments, and the Rincon Room became my assignment. And so I called Walter up and I said, how fast can you pull the staff together? And we met on 3 February. So the first time that we engaged Walter and the staff was 3 February. So through that next 6 weeks, ongoing meetings with all the individual stakeholders, I met personally with every one of those stakeholders. And then we had a final wrap-up and review that I'll share with you here in a second. Next slide. The working assumptions. There was no money allocated in the budget to solve the Rincon Room problem. We found the MAC task force research to be suitable to help us with this decision. Our task was to create additional space for fitness, wellness, and recreation, while at the same time providing minimal impact on other services we were delivering to our community. And speed to a final solution was a consideration. The board's feeling when they put this goal together, sooner was better than later. And I've been asked, what's the rush? From the board's perspective, this problem has existed for 5 years. We don't want it to exist for 6. Next slide. This is a MAC slide, part of the presentation to the community, and it has relevance to you all today as we discuss this problem. There was a survey done in our community in 2015. In 2016, there was a strategic plan produced. Both the survey and the strategic plan addressed the fact that additional space was needed for recreational purposes and for meeting space. In 2018, we did the Desert View survey. In 2020, we did the HOA2 survey again. And then the MAC work, and I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. Joey, thank you. So, not to bore you, the MAC spent 10 months engaging with you, the community, studying all the data that they could pull together to come up with a recommendation that they made to the board early in 2022. 10 months of work was significant, and it was relevant to providing us information we found valuable in our endeavor here. Next slide. This is an example of the analysis that they did. They went through the 2018 and 2019 data to be able to explain how we're using our meeting rooms and how we're providing recreational and wellness activities to this community. What they did was validate well, I have it here somewhere. The 2022 data that I pulled and I started to go through so I could do the same charts, and I realized it was going to come to precisely the same conclusion. The meeting rooms that we have, the primary meeting rooms, are large ones, the Catalina and the Sonoran room. There is great competition for use of those rooms, and they're used from board meetings to card clubs and everything in between that's going on. There's great competition to get into those rooms. We use them from 8 o'clock in the morning, some days until 10 o'clock at night. That's what's going on here in our campus with the activities of our residents. Next slide. So I asked everybody to help me analyze every space we have here between Mountain View and Desert View. And I'm not going to focus on these, but you can see we looked at the Mesquite Grill building. Next slide. The Desert View building. Next slide. The Mountain View Clubhouse. This is the west side view. Next slide. The Mountain View Clubhouse, the east side room. We looked at every space. We looked at all the activities that were ongoing in those spaces to develop and to screen our courses of action. So how do we come about making decisions? If you don't know, I'm a retired soldier. And most of my learning about solving problems I learned through the Army and the myriad of education I received there. So I shared this criteria with my working group on how we would logically walk through each course of action to reach a decision. Next slide, Joey. Let me share that screening criteria. Was the course of action feasible? Did it fit within available resources? Is the course of action acceptable? Is it worth the cost or the risk? Was the course of action suitable? Did it solve the problem? And is it legal and ethical? Was the course of action distinguishable? Did it differ significantly from other solutions? And was the course of action complete? Did it contain the critical aspects of solving the problem from start to finish? So let me take you through the 5 courses of actions that survived our early deliberations. The first one was simply to move the golf shop back to the Catalina room and make the Rincon room a meeting room to replace the Catalina room. Now, the pros and cons here are very simple, and there's a lot of information and data that goes behind all of them that are far beyond what you need to have today and far beyond what the board needs to have to come to a strategic decision about what it is that we need to do moving forward. In course of action 1, if we supported this one, the pros would be to move the golf shop back to its original location, restore it to where it was in 2017, gets it closer to the putting green and the driving range and the golf operation. The cons, it does not provide a solution to creating more space for fitness, wellness, and recreation, and we would further impact our current ongoing ALC operations. Next slide. Course of action 2. We went back to the 2017 course of action. Let's build an 800 to 1,000 square foot standalone golf shop. Pros, create a dedicated permanent golf shop location outside of any space we have right now. It would again be adjacent to the putting green, the driving range, and Matt's golf operation. The con, there was no money. The time it would take to design and build couldn't accomplish or achieve this in 2023. We would not solve the problem we were trying to solve to make the Rincon room available to fitness, wellness, and recreation this year. Course of action number 3, Joey. I pressed Ray real hard on this one. We went outside underneath the Mesquite, outside the Mesquite Grill, and how could we take some of that patio space and repurpose it and create a golf shop? And initially, we thought it was going to be a very simple undertaking. All you got to do is put up some walls. And then Ray got into it with architects, and we found out we were going to probably cost us more to do that than to build a new facility from scratch. destruction and reconstruction activities that would have to go on. The pros, it would create a dedicated golf shop location adjacent to the putting green and the driving range. Again, no budget, time to build, the longer time to make the Rincon room available, the impact on the current ongoing Mesquite Grill operations. Course of action 4. Relocate breakfast and lunch to the bistro, relocate the golf shop to the Mesquite Grill, and establish a snack bar operation out of the kitchen that's currently supporting the Mesquite Grill. The pros, created a dedicated permanent golf shop location. Space is available. On 1 May, we're closing it down. And we're moving the operation down to the bistro for the next 5 to 6 months because of the ongoing construction operations that will be taking place at Mountain View. So the Rincon room can be made available for its new mission very quickly. Part of my education here was how difficult it is for food and beverage to operate the Mesquite Grill. Alan Lambert looked at me and said, "You would make my life a lot easier if I served breakfast and lunch down here at the bistro other than where we're currently serving it." Nobody had ever told me that before. We're very optimistic about the snack bar component of this, and I'm going to share with you why. I'm an avid golfer. This winter has been brutal for those of us that play golf. What I mean by that is many times we haven't been able to tee off until 10 o'clock. By the time you finish your round of golf at Mountain View, by 2 o'clock, the Mesquite Grill is closed. Snack bar operation is not going to be closed at 2 o'clock. So the opportunity to serve our golf I have brain lock here. Our neighbors that play golf and come off the course, maybe we could retrain them again to follow our rules and buy their beer and their hot dogs in our golf shop and not bring their own beer to the golf course. One can only hope. And it creates new revenue opportunities for fitness, wellness, and recreation. Let me take a moment to expand on this. One of the things that Denise and I discovered in our conversations with Jeanette, we understood the impact of getting back 2,000 square feet at the Rincon room. The spinners wanted to go up there and spin, and the table tennis people wanted to spin, and all those kinds, or not spin, but do the things that they do. When I first moved here, my wife and I took our dance lessons in the Rincon room. Restore those capabilities to her. We knew that was there. But she then went on to explain the expanded capabilities she's going to have with the Mariposa room and the Paloma room at Desert View to have new recreational activities for our residents. So in this course of action, you're expanding capabilities with the Rincon room as well as in the Desert View. The cons. Okay, this was kind of tongue-in-cheek, and I know some folks in the community have taken me to task on this. I eat in the Mesquite restaurant regularly. My wife and I attend church here on Sundays, and our little church group tends to eat our breakfast every Sunday at the Mesquite Grill, because I insist that's where we go to eat. And then I eat there many times during the week doing my business I do on behalf of you all. And so I am emotionally attached to the Mesquite Grill. All right, so anybody out there that thinks I'm a Mesquite Grill hater, it couldn't be further from the truth. Course of action 5. This was given to me by a board member who will remain unnamed. You know, Matt, you don't have to do anything. And he was right. Maintain the status quo. We've been this way for 5 years. We can go on and just keep being this way. The problem is we don't create the additional space for fitness, wellness, and recreation. And we don't create the second and third level of opportunities that are presented that if we take the recommendation of the working group. And quite frankly, based on all the survey data from 2015, 2018 and 2020 to do nothing ignores the voice of the customer, you, our residents. Next slide. Give me a second, please. Hope you can see that out there. But our working group, we went through this collectively. All the stakeholders that I pointed out to you at the beginning, everybody on Walter's staff, Denise and I, we went through every course of action and we cussed and discussed each one to reach these conclusions. And so course of action 1 was found not suitable or complete because it did not provide a solution to our problem statement. Course of action 2 was not feasible or acceptable because of cost, time considerations, and other options were available. Course of action 3 was found not feasible or acceptable because of cost, time considerations, and other available options. Course of action 4 met all of our criteria, and course of action 5 was not acceptable, suitable, or complete. The board wants the Rincon room repurposed, and the CEO, the course of action, did not solve the problem. So it is the unanimous recommendation of not only myself and Denise, but of Walter, our general manager, and all of the stakeholders from his staff that we put together to work on this project. And I hope this serves Walter as a model going forward on how the board and staff work together to solve problems here in our community. Our recommendation for this board's approval is course of action 4. So let me summarize. If I was going to design the perfect location for the golf shop to support the Mountain View golf operation, it would precisely go where the Mesquite Grill is located today. Our recommendation makes the Rincon room available mid-year, and it creates new revenue opportunities for fitness, wellness, and recreation through the Rincon room and through the Mariposa and Paloma rooms. Basically, it expands services that we deliver to our residents. We have no impact on Liz Lawson at all. No meeting room activity is impacted by accepting course of action 4. There is no impact on ALC operations. They remain located in the Catalina room as they are today. It simplifies the food and beverage operation. All at the same time, we are maintaining the service that we provide to our community in providing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. A couple of related actions that I'm going to be very forthright with you. The snack bar operation, Walter and Alan Lambert will build the strategy for if this course of action recommendation is approved by this board. Walter and Alan have been given the warning order that that's their task. So somebody's going to ask me out here, what's this all going to cost us? Well, there's going to be a funding requirement to put the old hardwood floor back in the Rincon room. And moving the golf shop where we're moving it, we're going to have to put a hole in the wall to create an office or access to an office for Matt Hudson. And the counter he's got in this golf shop's falling apart. We're going to have to build him a new counter. All of those things are cost estimates that Walter and Ray will have to put together for the board's consideration. Not impactful on the decision that we're making today. Next slide. So I've got a motion for the board's consideration. Because this is a significant impact in our community, I move that this presentation be made available to the community for review and comment for a period of 21 days.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right. We have a motion made by Matt, seconded by Sean, that This presentation that you just heard by Matt would be made available to the community probably early next week, allowing for comment for a 21-day period. So we can collect those comments and read them, understand them, and give board influence on making a final decision, hopefully at the April board meeting, which would be about a month from now. So that's kind of the anticipation of what will take place. The email will go out, I assume, if we approve this, like I said, early in the week, and you will be able to make comments attached to any of this subject matter that you would like to say. In favor or against, like a different course of action, but it's up to you to give us feedback in that regard. So that's the motion, as I understand it. Board, do you have any conversation you'd like to have? Maybe ask Matt any questions?
Yeah, Dan, I want to say, Matt, good job using all the data from the Multi-Use Activity Task Force. Several of these slides were shown last year, February 28th, when we did the presentation of all the work that we did. And that was our recommendation as a task force, that we take and move the Rincon room out. We didn't give you a suggestion of what you do with it, but we wanted, the golf shop out of the Rincon room, because we needed the Rincon room for physical fitness, yoga, dance. I beg your pardon. Yeah, for that, but they could use the Mariposa and the Paloma for that, and therefore move the tennis, table tennis, and the cycling up to the Rincon room. Because Jeanette is losing revenue because she can't get the people who want to do their yoga and their stretching and all that in her Mariposa and Paloma rooms. So thanks for taking that information and presenting it one more time to show you all that we need the Rincon room free for table tennis and cycling and perhaps dance.
All right. I don't know if there was a question there, but it was a good comment. Matt, let me ask you a question real quick. The change of using the kitchen at the Mesquite Grill, I assume that there will be nothing done, certainly in the short term, maybe in the long term, to affect that kitchen. We're not looking to add space, tear it out, do anything like that long term. So the kitchen we currently have is a kitchen that'll stay for at least for the foreseeable future. Is that correct?
Yes, but I don't want to get out in front of Walter and Alan and company.
Okay, but Walter, would you say the same thing?
At this point, yes, I would not change that kitchen. I would leave its full capability standing there.
The other question I would have, Walter, and you can speak to this, Matt has represented the staff very well here, but I just wondered if you had any comments associated to this, this process or the motion itself.
The staff has been well informed, and we've had the meetings as Matt has mentioned. And again, we've looked at the data just like he presented it. And yes, and definitely Alan says that it would simplify his operations, because if you don't know right now, we prep all the food, majority of it down at the Mountain View Bar and Grill, and then we put it in golf carts and move it up to the Mesquite. And then there's no trash cans. If you notice, there's no dumpsters around the Mesquite building. So all the trash produced there has to be bagged up, and we have to haul it all back down to the Mountain View Bar and Grill to get rid of it. So, and then there's also the capability of people that are prepping at the Mountain View Bar and Grill. If they're all consolidated, they can also help with lunch prep and other types of prep, so we can get some efficiency out of the kitchen if we move operations back down. So we've looked at it, and we've taken all of our emotions out of it, because there are people in the food and beverage that do like the Mesquite. But if we take the emotion out of it, the data seems to point to what Matt has recommended.
All right, thank you. Any other board questions for Matt? Anything? Going once, going? Okay, So I'll ask for comments from homeowners, but I'll give you a little information before you might want to come down. We're really talking about the motion. So that's what, if you do have comments, would love to hear them. Come on down. But I'd really like to relate it to the comment about the motion, and that is that we are going to present this material to homeowners and give a 21-day comment period. So if you have comments associated to the motion, love to have you do that. If you want to make statements associated to the conclusions or the anything that's in here, I would ask that you would please wait until the meeting is adjourned. We'll have open comment at that point in time, but it'll kind of move the process along here a little bit. But right now, the motion on the floor is relative to a 21-day period for comment. So if you have a comment, come on down. Love to hear what you have to say. We need a name, unit, and lot number, if you can remember those.
I'm not sure I can. I always have to look at my paperwork. I'm Laura Lee Horwedel. I live in Unit 33, I believe. And I'm a visual person. I think what you're doing is really great. I felt from day one the Rincon room was wrong for the golf shop. That's number one. Number two, the idea of a snack bar and the golf shop, I find that very positive. But as a visual person, I would like to see an idea of the square footage that you're going to allow and how you're going to accomplish that as part of this motion. Because, as you know, people used to love the Mesquite. It used to be, when they first moved here, I've been here since '98, and it was a great place to go to breakfast. And people had that memory, and so you're fighting that memory. So I think some visuals as you present this would be helpful to people seeing, and the way you went through all of this, I couldn't think of anybody to do a better job. So I congratulate you. You're solving a problem and saving us money. But how big will how will it lay out? How will the kitchen lay out? How will the snack bar lay out? And how will the golf shop lay out?
Okay, got it. Thank you. I'll remind one again, we're trying to get to the motion. So I get that you have comments, and that's great. I really do appreciate them. But if you have comments relative to the motion. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Steve Lindquist, Unit 45, Lot 98.
Steve?
My only comment would be, or suggestion is that you also add a Q&A after the 21-day meeting period, that there be a Q&A with the board before you make your final decision for the community. I think there's a lot of questions that I have that I could stand here and tell you now, but you're just asking for comments on the motion itself.
Sure, I understand.
So it would be nice. There's probably going to be a lot of questions that people are going to have, and if you could hear those prior to making the decision, it might be beneficial.
Good. Steve, that's a good comment. I do appreciate it. I think the theory was, and we'll certainly consider that, the theory was that at the April board meeting, rather than holding a town hall just for this topic, the board meeting probably would center mostly on this topic for comments being able to be made at that point. But we'll think about that. Maybe we should do something in between.
It could be a line item on the meeting agenda.
Yeah, maybe we should do a town hall in between. We'll think about it, but it's a good comment. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Chuck Kelsey, Unit 29, Lot 69.
Hi, Chuck.
I support the program. I have no trouble with the motion, but I think you're asking for input on an incomplete picture. That's exactly what we did in 17 when we moved the pro shop without realizing how much it was going to cost to build a new one. I'd like to see some range cost estimates before I give any input. Yeah, you're selling me half a dozen, but you're only showing me 2. So I would like to see cost before you put anything in front of the residents.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Chuck.
Dick Cruz, Unit 36. My wife and I eat at all of our meals here in Saddlebrook. And we're emotionally attached to the Mesquite Grill, have been, and we've been eating there every day that it's open. So I hate to see the Mesquite Grill closed. I don't have a problem with the rest of the whole presentation, except I would like to keep the Mesquite Grill the way it is and keep it open. And like Walter sees us eating up there all the time. So he
Sure.
knows what we do. So.
Sure. Thank you. And that's, I think Walter eats there all the time because that's where lunch is served. But thank you very much for your comment. Any other comments relative to the 21-day comment period for this? Okay, hearing none, board, no more comments, I assume. We're going to make sure we got every comment out. Then I will take a vote, or I will have a vote on this motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Matt, you've got a little bit of assignment maybe in terms of things to do, but we need to get this out early next week if we can. So I think that's probably Walter and Diane, I would imagine. Okay, thank you very much for that. If you have comments about this, we'd really love to hear them. So hang tight for after the meeting, and we'll entertain all your comments. All right, thank you. Well, thank Matt or somebody. Okay, we're going to call on Matt one more time, but before I do that, I'm going to give him just a chance to relax. I'm going to ask for any motions of new committee members that we need to vote on. So let's do this very quickly. So, Sean?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we put Tim White on the Architectural and Landscape Committee as a permanent member. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What are you supposed
sorry,
to do? Sorry, are you sleeping?
Chuck was holding my microphone.
Oh, sorry. Oh, good. Passed unanimously.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
Tim White, right?
Yeah.
Good. Tim, are
Tim
you
White.
here? Are
No,
you here?
he's not here.
Oh, okay. Well, thank him for volunteering. Really appreciate it. Chuck?
I'd like to recommend and vote on John Sawickian to a permanent member of the Rules and Regulation Committee.
Is there a second to John's
Second.
name? All right, Campbell, second. Any discussion? Any discussion from the floor? Is John here? No. He ran away. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Diane, you got that, I assume? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, thanks for that little bit of business. Now we're going to turn it over to Matt again, if he's not out of voice. And Matt's other assignment in the 2023 goal was strategic planning. So Matt's going to put together a pretty big discussion with regard to long-term strategic planning. So Matt, I'll turn it over to you.
You don't mind if I walk around, do you?
No.
My knees are aching and it's time to move them. So, can you go back a slide, Joey? Nope, the other way.
That's the first slide.
Oh, I wanted you to put up that Saddlebrook 2 "We Appreciate You" slide.
There you go.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak for a moment on this. One of our neighbors,
Thank you.
left me a gift in Matt's golf shop. It was a book on HOAs. It was a book on elevating the thinking of board members and elevating the thinking of residents who have the privilege of living in an HOA. And so I found it very illuminating. And so if you know me at all, you know I'm very passionate about long-range thinking. And I tried to demonstrate that with my service on the golf committee in 21 and 22. And Next slide, Joey. And so I got tasked with the strategic plan goal for the board, and I was excited about this. But I want to tell you that Chuck Kill over here is my battle buddy. And I want to tell you that because Chuck and I agree on...
You mean Campbell Chaney?
No, my brother right here, Chuck Kill.
Okay.
So Chuck makes me better. Chuck's got a long background serving as a CEO, CFO, and my experience is in the military. And we come at this thing from different points of view, but he makes me smarter. And I hope that's what you want from us. We do challenge one another, our logic and our thinking. But I was given the task, and what you're going to see today is my recommendation to the board on how we go forward in completing a strategic plan. Next slide, please. So I produced this slide for my golf committee a couple years ago. And what's the importance today? These are the lines of operations in our HOA. Political, strategic, that's what the board owns. Operational and tactical, that's what Walter and his staff owns. And so I spend a lot of time talking about the gaps, and sometimes we don't understand how all those connections. I had an epiphany this week. This little corporation of ours, we have 3,100 homes, 3,147 if my rock star treasurer was briefing you. If the average home in this community is $500,000, a little corporation is worth $1.55 billion. And these 7 people are responsible for maintaining and enhancing your property values. That's why we exist. And so I point this out to you because this is the perspective that our board is trying to bring forward to you all. Next slide, Joey. So we did a SWOT. I did a SWOT. I'll take credit for it, so I'll take all the arrows. What are we doing well? What are our weaknesses? Well, we have an enthusiastic, energetic board. Trust me, you ought to see us. And we're organized. We're committed to making positive change in the way that we govern our association. We're committed to becoming a learning organization. In other words, let's not keep making the same mistakes over and over again. And our strengths are our people. We are the peoples. This is our community. This is our community. Weaknesses. I think we have an immature governance system. And I say that because I talk about board connectivity to our staff and board connectivity to our communities. We had the pleasure, us new board members, and actually the entire board, minus one member, went through training from KKW. I don't know what KKW stands for off the top of my head right now. But it was a consulting firm that came in and gave us several hours of instruction on Winning Boards 101. And so after I went through that class, I found out we got to be better. So it has to do with roles and responsibilities I just laid out. We produce a lot of negative results. Trust me, you just got to read the internet stuff, right? All you got to do is read it and you find out how much negative stuff we produce around here. We've had a lack of commitment to strategic planning. As a matter of fact, we killed our strategic planning committee a couple years ago. We as a board do not have a community vision or mission statement. We have to fix that. We're going to fix that. So opportunities. We have the opportunity to create a better system, to define those roles and responsibilities, to implement action plans that connect committees to the board and the staff to the board. Threats? Don't do anything. Just keep on keeping on. Let problem sets languish for 5 years at a time. Inadequate financial planning and management. That's a threat. Just ask my good friends from the Finance Committee. And if we don't create a vision, anything we do will get us to where we're trying to go. Next slide. So this board agreed that we're going to build a strategic plan. So Chuck says to me, what's the best way to do that, Matt? Have the staff do it, Walter and his staff? Reestablish a strategic planning committee and have them do it? Or should the board do it? And after you answer that question, then you got to answer the next question. What approach will we take to produce our strategic plan? Will we do it ourselves in-house? Or we bring in an outside consultant to help us? Next slide. So I went through this. I call it my logic train because Chuck forced me to answer the questions. If we have the staff build it, it lets the board off the hook. It's just not their job. It's our job to direct. It's their job to manage and execute. Next slide. Create a strategic planning committee. Once again, it lets the board off the hook. We just delegate this task to somebody else. Well, we don't currently have one. The time to organize a new committee would be a challenge. And no one on that committee would possess the situational awareness of all those things I was talking about up there that we're dealing with. I've only been on this board for 3 months. I can't begin to tell you the things that we're dealing with. No committee could understand the wide variety of tasks the board's dealing with in working with Walter and his staff and leading our community. Next slide. So the board, the pros, we own the political and strategic lines of operation. We must produce the mission, vision, and values for our community. And it provides us the opportunity to reinvent, I say enhance, our governance system. What's the con? We're pretty busy people. It's one more log on our fire. Next slide. So Matt's vote, my recommendation to my mates is we got to do it. Next slide. The approach, do it ourselves in-house, no cost. Yeah, we bring in a facilitator, we sit around and we take our collective experiences and we make it happen. Or we can delegate it to a strategic planning committee to accomplish sometime in the future. We haven't had a strategic plan in this community since 2016. We've not had a strategic plan since we transitioned from Robeson on January 2018. The cons do not benefit from the knowledge a consulting firm would bring us. None of us are expert on HOA governance. We do not possess a disciplined approach to getting to the finish line, and it lacks sustained accountability. Next slide. So, my research on hiring a consulting firm, they bring us proven track records. They deal with thousands of communities like ours. People I'm going to talk to you about. They have knowledge, skills, and experience that we need to benefit from. They bring us best practices from like-type HOAs. They bring us a disciplined process, and we would deliver a strategic plan in 2023. And what's significant about that is the impacts it has on governance in 2024. You remember how fast these years are going by? Man, they're clicking by fast. I've been here 9 years already. It's amazing. The cons, cost. I can't explain the return on investment for the investment we would have to make to bring somebody in. I can't do it today. I'll tell you that after we go through the process. And it brings, we had the pressure of working inside the constraints placed on us by an outside entity. Next slide. So how do I vote? I vote hire a consulting firm. Next slide. So my recommendation to my mates is we, the board, produced a strategic plan. By the way, this training we went through, they gave us best practices around the country in the communities that are best run, that have the highest governance. The boards are the best strategic planning committees they have in those communities. We hire the consulting firm. Next slide. So I created a roadmap for my mates' consideration. We produced a strategic plan first, and in phase 2, I'm an advocate that we need a strategic planning committee to help the board do its work of staying over the horizon for future years. Where is our community going to be in 2032? Where's it going to be in 2042? We need somebody sitting around thinking about this. And the board, I have to be honest, doesn't have the time to do it all by itself. The strategic plan produced by us, the HOA2 board, and the general manager. I promised Walter, I don't ever envision doing anything that Walter's not joined at the hip with what we're doing as a board, because he's got to take it and execute it. It's a governance multiplier. It helps build those relationships between us and the staff and us and the committees. We will produce a mission, vision, values, complete a SWOT, establish goals and objectives that are action plan driven. Next slide. So phase one, based on my recommendations, we need to hire a consultant. Well, I've already engaged 3 consultants, Dan, Chuck, and Campbell, in one version of my three consulting firms have been a part of the effort. We've engaged them. 2 of those consulting firms I'm talking about have personally been here on ground. We've received proposals from all 3. I've evaluated them, and I asked a former board member to independently review the proposals and give me their perspective. And so I got an outside voice to help me do a check on my own logic. What I'm looking for is approval from my board, from our board, to go ahead and hire the consultant and fund the work, and I'll explain more about that in a little bit. If I can get that approval, I'll go to work on making it happen. Next slide. So, for phase 2, all I need is approval from the board to reconstitute the strategic planning committee. I'll reach out to the people that were on the old committee. I'll organize the new committee. We'll charter it, and we'll focus them on their activities. Next slide. 3 consultants we brought in were the McMahon Group, GGA Partners, and Club Benchmarking. Next slide. Club Benchmarking, they gave us a proposal. And the problem in dealing with consultants is how they're oriented. In this case, their primary focus is on clubs, private clubs. And so when we start talking HOA, Chuck asked some great questions when we were talking to Club Benchmarking. And when it came to being able to give us references to HOAs like ours that they were working with, came up a little short. The truth is, the proposal they gave us was very club-oriented. It did not recognize us as an HOA and never understood that we were a common interest community. However, they will help us deliver a strategic plan. They have a very sharp person who facilitates that. They did not come here and do a site visit, but the truth is, of the 3 proposals, they were the weakest. Next slide. GGA Partners was my personal favorite because they're headquartered in Phoenix. And so had a partner from GGA come down here and spend time with Dan and I, and had a great visit. Did a site tour. I took them through everything, and got the daggone proposal back, and it didn't recognize us as an HOA. Again, our common interest community. They too will deliver us a strategic plan. They did a site visit, but they didn't listen. And I got back a boilerplate proposal that did not identify the specifics I gave him about how we're organized and how we're trying to go forward right now. And they threw services into the proposal we didn't ask for. And so at the end of the day, I rated this proposal 2 of 3. Next slide. McMahon Group was the first group that we brought in. They were actually referred to us by KKW, who did our retreat training. Their proposal was nothing but HOA oriented. As a matter of fact, that's what they specialize. They specialize in working with HOAs like ourselves. They're going to help us deliver a strategic plan that will be data driven. And what I mean by data driven is going to be driven by your voice. Your voice is the data that's going to help us produce a strategic plan. They did a site visit and they provided us the first impressions report, a quite extensive report. And so I'll take a second. All three of them would deliver a strategic plan by going through a survey process of some kind. The most detailed approach to survey production is McMahon Group. They're going to do 5 focus groups. They're going to do a focus group with the board. They're going to do a focus group with the staff. They're going to do 3 focus groups with the residents. The only purpose of the focus groups is to help to orient questioning in the survey that every resident will have the opportunity to have their voice shared in that process. So I rated them number 1 of 1, so I needed to validate that what I was feeling was real. Next slide. So I found Iron Oaks at Sun Lakes, and I had the opportunity to talk to their general manager, John Rayhans, who, by the way, this is a former Robeson community. They've been working with the McMahon Group for 3 years. They started out at the strategic planning level, and they've now evolved into a master plan, the real property master plan that they're doing for that community. I talked to him on 8 March. I took copious notes on the things that were coming out of his mouth. Things like, the McMahon Group has been a fantastic partner. They brought us a wealth of knowledge. They gave us third-party credibility in interfacing with our residents. They listen very well. More importantly, they make you listen very well to what the residents are telling you as a board. Next slide, Joey. Their planning process is timely, not drug out. This is his quote: "The process is worth the money." Chuck challenged me. What does that mean? I don't know yet. It brings trends to facilitate forward thinking. In other words, because of their work with clubs all around the country, or HOAs all around the country like ours, they can help us facilitate what we need to be thinking about 10 years from now that we wouldn't otherwise be thinking about. In Campbell's world, all of them do the same thing, but they connect your strategic plan to your reserve study and your financial planning. And it helps create continuity of effort from year to year as far as board operations are concerned. So, the 3 bids came in. The cost of getting to the finish line with these 3 companies, McMahon Group will deliver what we've asked for at $67,000. GGA Partners was $83,400. Club Benchmarking came in at $42,495. You can see there's a disparity there. Next slide. My recommendation to my mates is that we hire the McMahon Group. Next slide. So Dan said, "Matt, there's a lot going on around here. What does this plan look like?" And so I sat down and I scratched this out, and then I did a confirmation brief with the gentleman from McMahon Group that if the board should support my recommendation, could we do what I put on the wall? And so this is confirmed. That the board will make a decision. April will be contract and execution plan development. The focus groups and the survey work will get done in May and June. Strategic plan development, this is the board's engagement with the contractor, will take place July, August. In September we'll wrap up the development, and then in October we should be in a position to deliver a plan to you all. Next slide. So the next question I was going to be asked that I anticipated was, well, Matt, how are we going to pay for this? And so we have money in the budget where we were going to hire 4 people for the common area maintenance, level 5 maintenance effort. After conversations with the staff, we only funded 2 of those positions, which left half that money in the budget. So my recommendation to the board, if you accept everything I'm telling you, we can pay for this effort by repurposing $67,000 from the common area budget line identified there. Next slide. Any questions from my board mates before I give you my final thought?
Matt, The only thing I'm concerned about with the timetable is that the focus groups and survey, and I know the survey will be done electronically, but the focus groups would be here, I am assuming?
Yes.
And that's when some of our snowbirds are gone.
Yes, great point. The purpose of the focus groups is to inform the survey. So whether you live here full-time or part-time is not relevant to the conversation. It's what's the thinking of the people in the community, providing voice, so the survey addresses some of the preliminary thoughts that they can collect from the residents. It is the survey. No matter where you're at in the good old USA, you turn your computer on, you'll have access to providing your voice through the survey. So don't let the fact that the snowbirds are going to leave or not be here, not be a part of the focus group. We're still going to have voice from the community represented, regardless of whether it's a snowbird or it's a year-round person.
Thank you.
Good question.
Matt, I'm curious about the after. You have a timeline that gets us to October. And is there after that work that will be done when the McMahon Group is still on contract, or is work after that timeline done with like a new contract? How does that work? Do you know?
Yeah, there are ancillary services. What I put up on the wall will get you to the finished product on the strategic plan. Anything else that we should, they've given us the cost of what that would cost us. I haven't put that into this consideration to muddy the waters.
Okay, but this is a phase 1 plan up through October, correct?
Yes, sir.
So phase 2 then begins with a strategic committee potentially starting work. Is that correct?
Well, Chuck and I haven't figured that out yet. I figured, here's what I don't know. Because of, if we accept the fact that we should rely on outside expertise to help us to build the strategic plan, Chuck and I concluded that we don't want to get in front of what we're going to learn in this process. And more importantly, how we connect the strategic planning committee to sustaining this effort over time. And so Chuck got thoughts, I got thoughts. What I'm really waiting on is a consultant to help us refine our thinking.
Great, thank you. I think it's probably, if no one else has a current question, let's go to a motion, or Chuck, you want?
Next slide, Joey. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the question Dan just asked, do you know in Iron Oaks, this is their third year?
Yeah, they've been working with them for 3 years.
Do you have any idea how much more than the original contract that they're paying them in year 2 and 3?
I don't know. I didn't ask that question.
So, but there is additional fees for year 2 and 3.
Yeah, if you're going to ask for additional services, you're going to pay for them.
But so it's not a continuation. They're not helping them do additional research or questionnaires or things like that.
No. What you do get out of this process is they do all the analysis on the data based on the questions, and part of that is a very impressive book, if you will, that analyzes the data and gives us the rifle shot focus on what all those questions and the data means.
Isn't it true?
Yeah, just so you know, the Strategic Planning Committee was disbanded in 2020, not 2016.
I didn't say 2016. It was disbanded 2 years ago.
Yeah. Okay.
The last strategic plan, he said, was 2016.
How, after a year or 2 years, I know you said you can't come up with some kind of a return on investment or how much, what the benefit's going to be, dollar-wise, but when you look back after a year or two, how are you going to know if this expenditure is successful?
Well, I think we're going to have to talk about expectations coming out of the strategic planning process. You shared with me your personal experiences. Strategic plans get built and get put on a shelf and get forgot about. My personal experience with strategic plans is I drove them with action. So if 2 years from now we haven't driven ourselves to a higher level of governance, we haven't defined roles and responsibilities properly, we haven't created the action plan process between us and the staff and us and the committees, we failed. To me, that's how you evaluate whether we were successful or not.
But you can't quantify that.
Absolutely.
So you'll know whether there'll be additional income.
No, this isn't about money. This is about effective governance, and if you enhance governance, we should be good custodians of our resources. We should accomplish our task of maintaining and enhancing property values and all the things that we do to make that happen. This is an effort to make us better at leading the staff and our committees by listening to the voice of our residents.
No,
So this ain't a dollars and cents. I can't give you that.
I agree that it's very important to listen to the residents, but I think, personally, I think that should go through the Strategic Planning Committee, who is made up of residents, and get them more involved before we develop a strategic planning process to hire an outsider to come in and develop a strategic planning process or plan, and then hand it to the Strategic Planning Committee and say, here you go. I think it's a little backwards. I think we should wait, get the strategic planning process in place, or the committee in place, let them come in and decide what's the best methodology to use, and to have them get the members of the community involved in the process. Having the committee involved does not let the board off the hook. The board is still responsible for the plan and the results of the plan. So I'm not sure why the other solutions you feel would let the board off the hook, because the board is ultimately responsible for everything. True?
Chuck, we just disagree. I mean, so I hear what you're saying.
You don't think the board's responsible for everything?
The board is we can delegate, right?
Just like we do for every committee.
But we're responsible at the end of the day for everything that happens or fails to happen. And so we have a difference of opinion about how to get there. I'm trying to present to our board the process to get there that's going to be most effective in delivering results, in us elevating our ability to provide effective governance to our community. It's my thoughts about how to get there. And so I am very much leader-centric about driving the process, because that means we control it, and everybody that we're interfacing with knows that we're committed. This isn't some boards waxing philosophical and expecting other people to do things they're not doing themselves.
No, I agree with that. I just think the Strategic Planning Committee would be a better suited to develop this plan. I mean, in my background, I've gone through this process at least several times. And the results of most of those is most companies will go out and they will hire a facilitator to come in and look at the process over 1 day or a 2-day period and work with the management team, department heads, and put together the plan from there, not come in with a group of people and do everything themselves. And that's what, if you go out and look at most major, either private or public corporations, I'm guessing most companies are going to go in there and do a facilitator, not have somebody come in and do it all.
So I'll give you one last thought. That's not the process KKW told us the benchmark communities were utilizing. Maybe your corporate approach, but it wasn't the approach that KKW recommended based on their benchmark communities. I would prefer that we aspire to be a benchmark community. And so I know what I know about strategic planning, but I know what I don't know about HOA management and leadership. And I'm willing to roll the dice and say, no one's going to produce a more effective product than this board working in concert with a consultant like the McMahon Group to deliver the results that we're trying to deliver.
Any other questions?
I do.
Go
have
ahead,
something to
Denise.
say. I would say my observation is, and we've owned since 2015, and I haven't seen the desire of past boards. And honestly, with the dissolvement of the past strategic committee, tells me there's a lack of interest or expertise, and the mistakes that we potentially have made or could make in the future, and I look forward to 10 to 15 to 20 years, what does that look like? No one can tell me. There's no vision of where we're going. And my concern would be that we need help with that. I don't see, and I hope that we have great residents that can be supportive and be participants in this, but from my perspective right now, I have huge concerns of where we're going 10 to 15 years from now.
All right, thank you. Matt, I think it's time for your motion.
Yes, sir. So, having said all those things and had this conversation, I move that the board approve this strategy for achieving the board goal related to strategic planning. I got 4 parts up here. The board will produce the strategic plan. We'll hire the McMahon Group to guide the effort, approve the funding as I've recommended, and give us permission to form a new strategic planning committee. Thank you.
All right, there's a motion. Do I have a second?
Yes, I'd like to second the motion.
All right, Sean. So we have a motion on the table. As Matt described, I don't know if I need to read it to you again. Hopefully you can see it. We have a second on that. So I'll go back to the board again and ask for any questions. We've had quite a few, which are really good. It's great that we have a diverse view on this subject, but I'll go back and see if there's more questions that might we could ask Matt or just think about as an open forum. Any? Let me just, Matt, one thing I did want to ask you though, and we've talked about this, it really is, and you had it on a slide, it isn't something we're going to have in 2023, and that's kind of the end of it. We've talked about the ingraining capability that we need to put forth to make this a part of future boards, even though they're not here today, future boards' use. And the good news for me in that conversation, I'm kind of making a statement, I guess, but the good news for me is that you and Denise are kind of in the game for at least 2.5 more years. So if there is ingrainment or making this board policy going forward, I think we have a shot at that, as opposed to kind of doing it this in the 2023 board and throwing it over the wall. So anyway, that's not really a question, but do you believe that as well, that making this investment, not only monetarily, but there's I think a heck of a lot of time going to be invested by a lot of people, board included, homeowners included, that investment going forward being part of HOA 2 for the long haul?
That's a great question. Right now, the board's boarding, the staff is staffing, and the committees are committeeing. If we were to sit here and say, do we have organizational alignment from top to bottom? The answer would be no. We are guilty of having stovepipes here, and the left hand's not working well with the right hand. The good thing about hiring a McMahon Group, Dan, is that they can come back every year, and they can help us with this action plan component. Are we communicating effectively with Walter and his staff? Are we communicating effectively? If you go back to that KKW presentation we sat through, there are a lot of tools and techniques for us to be more effective at aligning the efforts of all of us to achieve the kind of outcomes we're trying to achieve. This is the purest way that I can think of for us to sustain continuity of effort over time in the relationships between the board, the staff, and the board and our committees to do the work of our community.
Thank you. I will ask one more question, and I'm going to pin Walter a bit with this. The reflection that Matt got when he talked to the general manager at Iron Oaks, which is one of 3 HOAs in the Sun Lakes development south of Phoenix that Robeson started quite a few years ago. His perspective as a general manager was very positive, it seems, from your notes that when you talked to him. Walter, I'm just going to give you a chance to speak. you know, you're a key ingredient to this process, and I'd like to make sure that you are positive in this going forward. So, and I'm not asking you to be that, just tell us what you think. That's really what I'm asking.
So what I think is a strategic plan is critical for the staff, however you get to it. But once you have that strategic plan, it really does help us as a staff to give us an idea of where you're going, where we can align ourselves. I mean, Dan, you came in and told us what your board goals are this year, and I trickled that down into my staff on, you know, where we need to adjust our focus, and that helps us do that. The other thing that really interests me is, you know, going beyond the strategic plan and eventually getting to what he mentioned here is a real property master plan, you know, because beyond the strategic plan, you know, what are we doing with all of our facilities and when are we renovating them? And, you know, so there's stuff beyond the strategic plan that I think we can move into after we get the strategic plan. But back to your original question, it really does help the staff to give us guidance on where to focus, and it gives us as directors you know, where to put the pressure on the staff to get the results that you want. And again, it's important that, you know, we don't put this on the shelf. I don't like to do a study, put it on the shelf, and, you know, and then it kind of fades into the night. We need to take that and then make action plans, and, you know, staff be involved with how this is going to get executed. So, you know, I really do I do want to see that come to fruition, where we get an action plan and we move this along and it doesn't just become, you know, another folder in my files. Thanks.
All right. Well, I will tell you, this meeting is being recorded, Walter, so someday in the future, somebody might show you this meeting. So
is this working?
Yeah, does that work?
I have a couple questions I want to ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is to Matt. Matt, on your strategic plan production process, you have a timeline. That's your timeline, or did you get the impression that if we were to hire McMahon that they could follow that timeline?
No, I had to be careful, right? I'm dealing with 3 contractors here, and so I laid out a plan based on previous conversations, and I didn't want to say, I'm recommending you to the board,
Right.
you know, but I need to have a feel for how this would unfold. Tell me if you think I'm off here. And I laid it out, and he came back and said, yeah, I think you're pretty close.
Okay, so I guess having dealt with, as we all have, supply chain issues, I would hate to, you know, say, oh yeah, we're going to hire X group, and then they say, oh, we can't start till August.
No, that was one thing I confirmed.
Okay.
That they have the bandwidth to get to us on
All
that
right.
timeline.
All right, and the other thing Chuck mentioned, he asked, you know, is there anything that's gone on further with the Iron Oak Sun Lakes? And you have listed here currently working on a real property master plan, which Walter just mentioned. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
right now, for all of us as residents here, when we cross you have to forgive me, I'm a soldier, the line of departure, 1 January 2018, our community had deficiencies. You've all heard plenty about the golf courses. We've got 2 golf maintenance facilities that the Borders reports told us are totally inadequate. We have no common area maintenance facility, so we've crammed them in with the Mountain View Golf Facility. We've got to preserve. If you've ever tried to work out in the preserve workout facility, you know how undersized it is. You know the restaurant at the preserve probably is not going to serve that community well at full build out. And so all of these things need to be considered in a real property master plan on where we're going to go. Someday we're going to have $3.98 to spend to enhance the preserve, fix new maintenance facilities, build a new common area maintenance facility. No plan exists to do this work today. And so these are all of the big stuff, it's hidden stuff that we want to give visibility to. And so when you ask me what a strategic planning committee can do, This is the over-the-horizon kind of work I'm talking about. What are the priorities this board will establish? And then somebody goes to work to tell us the options available to make something become real for our community. Every one of these projects that we successfully complete maintains or enhances the value of your home. That's the importance of this work that we're talking about.
All right, good. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to open it up to the audience. You guys have heard a lot of conversation. Hopefully it's been informative for you. So if I will reflect once again on the motion is as you see it, so I don't need to read it again. But anyway, I'd like to have comments associated to the motion. So come on up, Bill.
My name is Bill Mead. I live in Unit 45, Lot 118. I strongly believe that Matt has done a great job. He's a very analytic and systematic thinker, something that's badly needed. I strongly support the idea of a strategic plan, and I strongly support that it be done by the board, not for cover. From my perspective of working in the nonprofit field, in governance and management for some 30, 40, 50 years, it is, in addition to managing finances, the most important job the board should be doing. I do have a concern, though, about hiring a consultant. I think Matt's done a great job of providing us with a fait accompli, which will get him where he wants to go, but I'm not sure it's where I want to go. Wall Street Journal had an article last week about consultants, and they were very negative on it. They're there primarily to provide cover. They don't really provide a whole lot more. There's, I've had some experience with consultants. When I was working in San Diego with the Department of Health, they hired a consultant and talked to us, and I was in a meeting with them, and it was done. I said, well, why does the county go out and hire you? We already know this stuff. And in a moment of candor, which surprised the hell out of me, he said, you don't charge enough. There's an interesting book about consulting that was referred to by the Wall Street Journal article. The title of the book is A Consultant Steals Your Watch and Then Tells You What Time It Is.
All right, Bill, thank you for those comments. Chuck, I'm sorry? Chuck, come on up. I'm going to remind you just that we'll try to get to a 2-minute thing. So anyway, come on up. If you got a comment.
I won't take 2 minutes. Chuck Kelsey, Unit 29, Lot 69. I concur with everything you're doing. I have no problem at all. I totally, wholeheartedly disagree with point 3. I sat through too many of these meetings, too many of the coffees, listened to the complaints from the residents about common areas. We finally put together a common area program. You're about to see growth in the common areas explode, and you're taking money away. You're going to ask Ray, you're going to ask the new hire who is no longer in the room, you're going to ask Walter to clean up the common area. You're taking 1/3 of his money to do this. Find it somewhere else. That's your job. I have no suggestions. Find it somewhere else. End of subject.
Thanks, Chuck. Thank you.
Hey, Chuck, Dan, so you understand, we're not taking any money away from common areas.
The money is coming from the budget. The line is referred to in your proposal.
Can I answer the question, Chuck?
60-some thousand out of 180.
Can I answer the question now?
Absolutely.
Okay. If you'll listen to me, this board has acted on level 4 and level 5 maintenance. We sat down with Walter and Ray and the appropriate staff members, and we came to agreement on what the right plan is right now to affect and implement level 4 and level 5. We resourced the people requirements, we resourced the equipment requirements. What the board did last year was it did 2 things. It put equipment money in the budget, it put people money. When we got done with all the negotiations, we didn't need as much money for people that we put in the budget.
How do you know that? You haven't done it yet.
We did that here in the board meeting.
No. You haven't put the 4 people in you were going to hire.
And we hired 2.
I know. You didn't do what you said you were going to do, and now you're going backwards. Your logic is a little circular.
No, I don't know. Okay, thanks,
One of
Josh.
us is
Thanks for the comment.
Mona Devine, Unit 45. And I'm not sure who brought it up about the snowbirds. I'm not a snowbird, and I don't know that any are here, but just to speak on their behalf, I think that is a good point for the focus groups to bring some input in at that point. As much as we can provide input for them, I'm not a snowbird. They may see things and use our facilities a little bit differently, so I challenge you to try to bring their input in during the focus part, because otherwise the questions you form for your surveys may not adequately address their concerns or input. And I've dealt with a lot of surveys in the past, and those questions and the questions you ask can be so important. And I also applaud you for utilizing the previous work that was done by the multi-use and planning committees, because a lot of really hard work went into that, a lot of good information that can be used as a foundation going forward. We still need to build on it, but thanks for doing that.
Thanks, Mona. One comment I'll make associated to that, and I think it's a good one. When we did talk to the McMahon Group, they do this work across hundreds and hundreds of HOAs across the country. So dealing with seasonal residents as we have them here is not new for them. I can't tell you what they would say in specifics, but that's what they do all the time. So I have an appreciation that I think they can deliver the resident view that we're looking for, even though it may be timing-wise a little unique. That's just my opinion, but they do this everywhere. I mean, this is kind of what they do, so, sorry. Yes, oh, look who's here.
Ron Lenz, Unit 45, Lot 2. The first thing I want to say is this board meeting is very refreshing. I have never come to a board meeting before where the answer was not already cooked. This was a great discussion. I support the motion. I know what Bill is talking about with a consultant that steals your watch and tells you what time it is. But there's the other side of that coin. I've worked with both kinds. And for $19 a rooftop, I'll give you a 20 and you can keep the change. Hire the consultant.
All right. Thanks, Ron. All right, so that extra change, that means I pay $17 or something. Just kidding.
So Ron, is that going to be in your statement next month, the extra dollar?
Yeah, it will be. Any other comments? Thank you, Ron, for that comment. We got some people that clapped, so I think that was happy news. I don't know. Okay, I don't hear any more comments. I think we need to vote on this because this is a 2023 goal, and kicking the can another month or whatever, I don't really think that's useful in my opinion. So, hearing no more comments, I'll open this for a vote. All in favor of the motion. I'm going to read this again, just make sure we're all straight on this. Board produces a strategic plan. Phase 1 hires McMahon to guide the effort. Phase 1 approves funding as recommended. Phase 1 approves the formation of a strategic planning committee. Phase 2. So that's the motion. It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? We have 1 opposed and 5 in agreement. Thank you very much for that. Well, for Mark? Yeah, that's true. I'm sorry. Mark told me I could vote for him, so it's actually 6 to 1. Sorry. That's right. Thank you. I forgot about that. Okay, you know what? This has been a great meeting. Thank you all for coming. I have one last thing. I'm going to let Sean tell us about board communications real quickly.
Okay, I tried to get out of it, and he said no. All right, I'm keeping track right now of all the board communications that come from the residents. For the entire month of March until yesterday, we had 4 people that had concerns, and all 4 of those concerns have been looked at, maybe not addressed and not fixed to their satisfaction, but we're pressing on. And so if you made a communication to the board and you got a response back within about 3 hours, and then we have processed some other stuff. So if you want to come up and talk to me about that, if you're here at this meeting. But 3 of the 4 were absolutely taken care of. As of yesterday, and actually this morning, we had 18 people want to know and support the move to the Rincon, to take the
golf shop
out of the Rincon. 17 people, like I said yes, do it, do it, do it. We also had a concern about doing that, and that has also been addressed to that person to his satisfaction. So thanks for writing to us. Please, if you do write to the HOA2 board, please use our board emails. First name dot last name at sbhoa2.org. Please do not send it to our personal emails. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Matt is happy to say he doesn't have to speak anymore, says I adjourn. I got a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Thank you all very much. Now we go into the fun part, which is time for community input on really any topic. The only issue you have is you have 2 minutes, so that we'll probably kind of stick to that pretty hard. So anyway, come on up. Happy to have you, and give us your name and lot number, and let's hear what you got to say.
Good morning. My name is Sharon Beckman. I'm from Unit 45, Lot 119, and I'm reserving my previous comments to what I think is the appropriate forum, which is comments from the audience. And that is, Matt, well done. Really a wonderful job presenting this. Board, great discussion. It was truly the most refreshing discussion I've heard in 3 years of living here.
Sharon, can you come closer to the mic because
Sure.
we can't hear you?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to say that
Yeah, say that good part. Say the positive part again.
I said, first of all, I want to commend Matt for the work that he did in putting this proposal together. I was very impressed that you even mentioned the weakness of governance, because if we don't have a clear understanding of what our governance is all about and a vision that the governance can implement with the facilitation of staff, we're just running in circles. So excellent work on your SWOT analysis, excellent work in coming up with a proposal, and I appreciate the board having a robust discussion in front of all of us. One comment that I would say as a resident is, if you would decide that you as a board have a responsibility to make these decisions, because we put you there, make these decisions, but don't allow a public forum in the midst of a member vote unless it's a publicly announced public hearing. It just clouds the issue and it makes it difficult for the members to do their job. So that's my commentary after 30 years of experience in this world. So thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Sharon.
Russ Soderberg, Unit 35, Lot 46. I just have a comment that I'd like the board to be aware of. We have a high percentage of our residents who are hard of hearing. And Matt, while you were doing your presentation, we either need to get a headset for a person or a lavalier, because as you moved around and you kept going in and out, and there's probably 50% or more of the community that is hard of hearing. So when you do that, when you don't speak directly into those mics, it doesn't get in the loop system well, and it certainly doesn't get into the audio system. So, that's just something to be cognizant of and think about when you're doing that, because hearing is a significant problem within our community.
Right. Absolutely, Russ. Thank you so much. Joey, did Frank get here with the mics? Okay. Good. Joey, it's funny you should bring this up. Frank Kalsbeek from Old Pueblo Theatrical Solutions has just delivered 4 brand new, never been used mics, which Community Circle Players is going to buy. And it'll have a lavalier and it'll have the face mic, because if you've been to the show the last 3 nights, we've had a lot of crackling. Yeah. So we want to get rid of that. And Russ, I couldn't agree more. The other thing is we have an opportunity, and I'm really hoping that my friends at the Hearing Club, the Hard of Hearing Club, I call them because I don't know their official name, will submit to the board for budget time this year to purchase for about $2,000 a program called Wavecast. And if that's purchased, we'll probably double the price to do it here and to do it down at Mountain View. But that way we can all turn our hearing aids in through Bluetooth, and we don't have to worry about the T-coil loop anymore.
Okay,
so
Sean.
we're working that.
Sean, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next time you need to stand in line, by the way.
Sorry.
I would like to discuss that product with you, because it's not the panacea.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Thanks for coming up. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Okay. Steve Lindquist, Unit 45, Lot 98. I wanted to speak a little bit more about the Mesquite Grill proposal, what you're doing there, some more details on that. First of all, I want to let you know that I always like going to the Mesquite Grill, and so I didn't think I was going to be a fan of not having it anymore. I think I can live with it. Matt did a good job of explaining what they're doing and why they're doing it. Although there are still a number of questions that I have about it, but we can hold those until later down the road. I will say, though, I'm a critic of our food and beverage operation in general. I've owned restaurants, 2 of them, for several years. I learned a lot of good lessons in the restaurant business. Believe me, it's not an easy business. Wouldn't want to do it again. But if it helps the P&L for the food and beverage, then that's a good benefit, certainly. I disagree, though, with a policy that seems to be prevalent in all of the boards, and I don't know because I haven't heard this board speak of it specifically, but our last general manager, Damon, publicly would state that, it's okay, expect to run deficits and subsidize the food and beverage operation, because that's just what every place like this does. I don't think that's a good reason to allow deficits to not only exist, but continue to grow larger. I think it's bad policy. If we have that policy that we expect to lose money, and we hire a food and beverage manager and he knows that up front, it's kind of like a license to lose money. You're going to, if you expect it, you're going to lose it, okay? It just sets a bad policy. And more specifics on why I'm a critic of food and beverage the way they are now, and I'm speaking from experience of being in the restaurant business. I see inconsistency in our operating hours. Yes, they post them and these are operating hours, but oh, by the way, this Saturday we're going to close, so you can't come, don't come to our restaurant on Saturday because we're going to do a special event. If you have inconsistency in your hours that change all the time, and you take special events have precedent over your regular customers every day, your regular customers are going to go away and they're not going to come back. Some number of them.
Got it. Hey,
inconsistency in food and quality, and inconsistency in menu items. Those go right on down the same line.
Okay, cool. Hey, thanks, Steve. Thank you very much for your comments.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Art Kopsak, Unit 29, Lot 26. Regarding the Mesquite, back in 2013 and 14, I was intimately involved with the renovation committee for the Mountain View complex. We did a cost-benefit analysis to determine exactly what was going to happen because of it. Turns out that we substantiated that if you combine the food and beverage service from the Mesquite all into the main complex, it was a money winner for us. And that we would then reverse the golf course so that hole number 18 became, hole number 9 became 18, so that the golfers could readily use the bar and grill. We subsequently constructed 18 golf cart parking spaces adjacent to that area for the golf course. I might add that your new golf cart path that's being put in between the current 9 and 10 can still be used for the renters to return their golf carts to the pro shop without providing congestion in the main parking lot. We also did a further analysis and determined that the Mesquite Grill could be turned into an activity center that would be rented, similar to the activity center HOA 1, so we would have a revenue generator. Yes, this requires the pro shop currently to be relocated back to where it was at those days in the Catalina and Tortolina rooms. In the future, additional revenue, if generated, could allow you to either expand that area or build a separate complex. And that would give you the breathing room to do it, and you would still have a revenue generator. Thank you.
No, good comments. Can I ask you something? You must have a piece of paper for somebody, huh? You were quick, Mark, with your first comments about the work you guys did financially about Mesquite, and I couldn't quite understand. Are you saying that you ended up with the Mesquite being a bad investment?
Yes.
So, okay. I couldn't. I'm sorry.
It was the cost-benefit ratio analysis was done to determine number one, should we do the renovation?
Okay.
Number two, what should be the result of it?
Okay.
And I should have pointed out that there was a further benefit in that the food and beverage operation could run the seating operation differently for breakfast, lunch, and dinner so as to minimize the wait staff idleness.
I understand.
Or overstay it. So
Okay.
that was also done.
Cool. Thank you very much. Those are great comments. I sorry to make you go back and regurgitate them, but I didn't hear the beginning one. So
It might be wise to go back and look at that and also look at the plans because additional food POS stations were established, et cetera, for
okay.
that.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Mona, you're back.
Just following up and positive notes on that, financial analysis. And I'm a big Mesquite fan myself, emotional attachments. But when it was moved over to the bar and grill before, everybody said that there was a financial benefit. I tend to believe those numbers. Then when it was moved back to the Mesquite, we were told by staff that no, it didn't cost anything more to have the Mesquite separate. I don't believe those comments. So I'm supportive of moving it over there, but I'm a little bit questioning about the snack bar proposal, and I go back to our financial analysis before with golf, and should we consider emphasizing the bar and grill first and making sure that we've got the use that's coming in, because if golfers are buying at the snack bar and you've got the bar and grill also open at the same time, you're pulling the same number of users. And in doing so, should we consult with Invited, Club Core, or whatever they're calling themselves, about should we look at reversing the golf course? Because that did come up before, because if we put the emphasis for food and beverage down there and we save money, encourage the golfers to use that. One of the proposals we made 4 or 5 years ago on the golf committee was to try to provide more information to the golfers too, to combine with food and beverage. Some real simple things that cost nothing. None of them were followed up on, like the rental carts, the placards. Where do you direct your food and beverage to? The outside golfers don't know where to go. So if you're going to make the move, let's make the most of it.
Cool. Thank you, Mona. Thank you. Anyone else? Is anybody hungry? Oh, my Lord. Yeah, it's about dinner time, I think. No other comments? That's it? Thank you all for coming. It's been fun.